Aerial arcade action with G-LOC, this time on ChinnyVision. G-LOC is a 1990 game from Sega, designed by Yu Suzuki. Came out in 1990 in Japan. You probably didn't see it in this country till about 1992. Famous for having that 360-degree cabinet, which apparently cost $125,000 if you wanted to put it into your arcade. I know there's some disputing about how much the arcade machine cost, but I took that figure off the Sega arcade forum. And thanks to the Xbox Vision, who's done some superb capture from Maine to show you just how good this arcade machine looks. It's the logical development of games, well, it's a logical development of Afterburner. I first saw the 360 spin-around version, not in the Ashwaddy Waddy, and I sat down it and I bottled it because that kind of game will make me feel nauseous, it'll make me feel sick. And I sat there and I thought, this is a really bad idea. Any machine that has a emergency stop button on it that can leave you hanging upside down is probably not for a feeble person like me. The UK home versions were published by US Gold. We're going to start off on the Megadrive. The Megadrive had a fairly decent conversion of Afterburner, but not completely successful. So it's interesting to see how this will fare on the Megadrive. It was released in 1992 on that system when the other home versions came out. Lots of options to select from. Reconfigure your fire buttons, and also configure how you want the plane to move, because you can have a advanced version where you can spin the plane round more basically. With limited version, it always returns you to centre. You get a rather long-winded intro on the Megadrive, which shows you the map layouts of where you're going, but you can skip that, and off we go. Difference from Afterburner at the moment is you're inside the plane rather than behind it, but you will come to that. And look at these lovely colours. We've got 5 bogies to shoot down. I'll leave that hanging. You have missiles and you have your Vulcan gun. Your Vulcan gun is unlimited, and your missiles are limited, so you need to manage them. You can shoot down the baddies with your Vulcan gun, but you'll need to have them closer. And there's this 3D thing where you go between the exterior and interior view of the plane. So now we have a night level and we're outside, which means baddies can fly behind you and shoot you in the rear. In this less advanced mode I'm playing, you don't have to manage your fuel, whereas in the advanced version you do. Over to the Amiga, which should be more than capable of matching the Megadrive, but it's US Gold, so yeah, here we go. You have to hit a certain amount of enemies within a time against a time limit. And while the Amiga has the copper chip and could do all that stuff the Megadrive's doing with the sky, it appears US Gold couldn't really be bothered. You do get the samples. You don't get all of the intro. Gameplay, though, is ostensibly the same. And of course, G-LOC refers to loss of consciousness by G-force. And the ST has a smaller screen. And yes, yeah. I mean, if you'd come to your expensive 16-bit computer from the arcade, you don't expect it to exactly replicate it, but you perhaps do expect it to match the Megadrive version. Your missiles will lock on, and you can fire those off at will. The plane's speed in this mode is automatically controlled, but in the advanced mode you can control it yourself. But you also have to manage your fuel, so there's almost like 2 difficulty levels to the game. over to the Sega Master System. And it appears the Master System got its game a year before the Megadrive did, 1991. But we all know what's going to happen. It's going to be some strange variation of the original game. On the Mega Drive and Master System versions, you get to resupply your plane with different weapons, not on the US Gold versions that I can see. So here we are. Decent sense of movement thanks to the flashing colour and trick on the ground there. That's not scaling it, that's the old just flashing colour trick, isn't it? But it works! There's lots of rolling 360 degrees, a jaunty tune plays, and it's just a logical development of Afterburner. It's almost Afterburner. Well, we had Afterburner 2 in the UK, didn't we? So it's Afterburner 3. But it looks rather nice. It has that thing you want of your Sega console system, where even if it can't match the arcade, it looks decent. That's level 1 completed. This time we have to destroy enemy tanks, which will be on the ground. Now we come to this because there's something missing on this Master System version. Commodore 64. US Gold referenced the 360 in the title for all their versions because the 360 version of the arcade was the top version, therefore why not get that, why not try and invoke that 360 degree spinning thing for your 8-bit conversion? Because, you know, when you went into Trocadero and saw that, what you're seeing now is exactly what you were thinking of. No in-game music. The radar works like the other versions on the bottom there, so it shows you what's in front and what's behind, and that's important because you have to get a certain amount of kills within the time, so you have to use that radar to line up the baddies and get them in the right position. This badly needs a tune to drive it along, because the gameplay isn't too bad. It's perhaps a little bit dated for 1992, but it's actually not too bad. Spectrum version. Except easy, medium or hard. And this game made the cover of Your Sinclair, as I recall. 2-colour. How the plane's going to stand out from this background, because everything, the main play area is 2-colour. And of course on these home micro versions you only have access to one fire button, so it makes it a slightly different gameplay experience. Basically both fire buttons, or both firing methods, work off the one fire button. The damage is displayed in the middle there. It flashes red. Over to the Amstrad. Very similar to the Spectrum version, but colourful. How choppy is this going to be though? Again, like the Spectrum and C64 versions, no in-game music. But how's this going to move? Not too bad. It's very easy on the Spectrum and Amstrad versions to take on damage from planes firing you from behind. Or just flak and missiles coming in. You can't see when they're coming towards you because your missile's heading towards the enemy. So you see, I've already taken on quite a bit of damage there. Back to the ST. And I'm already getting the feeling that I'm slightly bored. And if you don't have those whiz-bang visuals that the arcade version has, even when you've got a plane coming up behind you like here, because it looks so blocky, you suddenly realise how shallow the game is. Whereas here on the Mega Drive, actually, it looks rather nice, doesn't it? The Sega Mega Drive reviews were mixed on this game. CMVG seemed to like it. Some of the other magazines like Mega didn't seem to like it. And here we go with a level where you fly between... I think it's supposed to be a canyon, but looks like a series of walls. The arcade does this much better, but the Mega Drive's doing it okay. And this is what I talked about on the Master System version of shooting the tanks. This is the level where you shoot the tank, but on the Master System version, they've not done the bits at the side, which you have to avoid. Back on the Amiga, and let's see how this level works. It's very different. It's very different. Almost works better than the Mega Drive version because it has proper solid walls at the side. Although this is arguably running faster than the standard Amiga 500 would be, since it's an accelerated Amiga 1200, so it's smoother than it would be. It looks... It's a strange thing going on here because the plane's suddenly gone brown. The same colours as the edge, but this is an Amiga, so we could be in 32 colours. There shouldn't be a problem. So I'm suspecting a rather lazy ST port. I'm slightly conscious on this Master System version you are playing it in a letterbox. I've suddenly realised actually the playfield area is very small. But it does do the whole zooming up from behind, then going behind you and all that stuff. Although that gets quite irritating when there's a lot of planes behind you because you get all this zooming back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. No danger of that on the 64. Where you're suddenly painfully aware, having come across the Master System, how slow it is. I hadn't thought about it, and it didn't bother me until I played these games side by side and I thought, hang on a minute. Commodore format managed to give this game 79%, which I'd say is a little bit generous. Mind you, your Sinclair gave the Spectrum version a Mega game, so there you go. But it's nice to come to the CPC version with some nice bold blues, and we do get the... Well, if you thought they looked like walls before, they definitely look like walls here on the Amstrad, and... it doesn't really work. Afterburner on the 8-bit, certainly the Amstrad had levels like this, didn't it, I think? Long time since I've played the Amstrad version, long time since I reviewed it. I recall it had levels like this, but it's got really choppy now, incredibly choppy, shifting all of this around. Back to the sweet relief of the Mega Drive. Yahoo! It's that boy from Wild Geese. Yahoo! Now land this crate, kid. This was the thing about the arcade version. You took off from the carrier, you landed on the carrier. So I had to line this up, do I? Slowly comes towards me. I don't have to go up or down, I just have to line it up. There we go. And there's Stephen Dennis with very large fists. So Master System, so far we've established there's no canyon section, but there's something very different about this version. It asks you to climb and fire your missiles. Yes, it has end of section baddies, which the arcade doesn't have. You suddenly have, you go from a real world situation to having this goodness knows what alien hot air balloon floating in the air. It's I don't know what jump you would make to put this into the game, because it's certainly not there on the original. Perhaps I just thought it needed livening up, and indeed it does, to be honest. So between sections on the Megadrive version, you get to install better missiles, better cannons, and better armour. And it deducts, you don't have money, it uses the points you've scored. So it just affects where you come in the high score table at the end, basically. The more upgrades you buy, the lower your high score will be. I quite like that as a mechanic. And I also, there's so much I do like about this Mega Drive version. It looks attractive, and I love the way the planes do actually look like they're coming from behind you, and the general way it at least lives up to the arcade in a way many home conversions don't. Think about Afterburner on the Sega console, Space Harrier, Outrun, none of them really live up to the original game, and actually, for once, we actually do have something that feels approaching the arcade on your home system on far less powerful hardware. And as I said earlier, I'm playing this on the easiest setting. There is another difficulty setting which allows you to control your speed and your afterburners and all sorts of different aspects and fly upside down more and so on. I'm going to run out of time on the Mega Drive here. 5, 4, oh, yeah. Well, I'm going to explode again, aren't I? Yes. Isn't that lovely? That 3D view reminds you of Virtua Racing, and we've run out of time, oh dear. Look, it's got the Spectrum colour scheme just on that screen. Over the Amiga, and we're going to land on the carrier. So we've played, what, this is 8 levels. And we come in.
Congratulations.
Well done, game completed. You only get the first 8 levels on the Amiga. On the Mega Drive and the arcade, you go on to lots more levels. On the Amiga and presumably the ST and the 8-bits, you just get to level 8 and that's game over. Which is nuts, because that's the point in the arcade where you start up, and the Mega Drive, we start upgrading your craft. You're here on the Amiga, and I can see why Amiga Power was so scathing about this game. It's you got to level 8. Tough luck, that's it. That's all we can be bothered to code. And the end of game sequence on the Spectrum. So G-LOC 360, as it's called on some of these versions, on the Mega Drive Master System, ST Amiga, C64, Spectrum, and the Amstrad. The Mega Drive version is unfairly maligned, certainly by some of the magazines, such as Mega. I actually think it's a decent arcade conversion. The gameplay, as with many arcade games, is limited because it's designed to give you a short thrill to get the money off you and then get someone else on the machine. You'll never be able to spin yourself around 360 degrees in your living room, but this is probably the closest you're going to get to the arcade experience, certainly graphically, on the home systems and gameplay as well. Master System version is an admirable attempt. It's a take on the arcade, an 8-bit take on the arcade. And now we come to the US Gold versions. The Amiga and ST versions are pretty pathetic. They're short, they're ugly, they don't play well at all. They're an approximation, a lazy approximation of the arcade. And there's so many more better games you could be spending your £25 on at this time. The 8-bit versions, that is not a Your Sinclair Mega game. It is not. It's a fairly decent follow-up to Afterburner that's limited but repetitive. And once you strip away all those fancy graphics from the arcade and Mega Drive version, you suddenly realise there's not an awful lot left. That also applies to the C64 and Amstrad versions, which, although more colourful, are both choppy, and all these games need in-game music. It's been done with the least effort possible. I honestly think if you like Afterburner and you have a Mega Drive, then you should seek this game out because it's an upgrade on that game. All the other versions should be avoided just like I avoided playing the game in the Trocadero, because otherwise you'll just be sick.